itself is something that schools generally don't teach you.
No, I'm not on medication. I'm on weed though, and I feel hella good.
Welcome. It's Monday. I know I'm a mess because I've been cleaning. I'm making dot cakes. I've already done it once. You're able to do it at home. You don't have to pay $90 like influencers do and go buy yourself dot cakes and you make that shit at home. You put it in a little mason jar. Easy as shit. So, yeah, welcome. We have... Sorry, buffering. I have the world cams on so I can chronically be online at all times. Do you guys want to know that the term chronically online is actually ableist? Originally, chronically online was termed by my community, the disabled, chronically ill people who deal with lifelong sicknesses or chronic pain, tumor shit like me. And so a lot of people would say like chronically, their name was chronically this or chronically that, you know. But now they use it to shame people. Well, if you are someone who is disabled and you can't get out of the house, the only interaction you're going to be able to get is online. Sometimes it's going to appear as though you're chronically online because you're chronically fucking ill. See where that's going? So it is inherently ableist to tell people you are chronically online, get offline. Go outside and do something. Not everybody can go outside and do something. There's some days, well, it's better now that when I first got disabled in my 20s sucked. I was in and out of the hospital. I was very sick. I was getting injections in my back and I had surgery. I've had to have a couple endoscopies and shit, which you guys know I was unfortunately awake for, which that creates PTSD and all that crap. But yeah, anyway, so some people are chronically online because that's it. And also, too, our world has been forced onto online. You know, part of the reason why we got the internet wasn't just so we could have all this communication and stuff, but was also a part of media magic. It was also a way of creating another side or an invisible world, right? And some of these people, I'm saying I was balancing you on their book, but some of these people believe that, you know, we created the internet. That means we created a realm that we could have entities live in, or we could have people talk to us through it, which them creating like AI, like of dead people who aren't around anymore is actually a form of media magic too. It's resurrecting the dead. And so, you know, some people believe that if you can do things like make an AI that mimics someone who's dead, then you could magically bring them back to life in other ways, which is weird. It's so weird. Weird, but yeah. Originally storytelling, music was originally, you know, priest. If you were a storyteller, if you were a priest, you were a priest. If you were a musician, you were really a priest in Babylonia. If you were an artist, you were a type of priest. You see? You see? A priest was not just someone who read scripture and, you know, preached at people and stuff and took sacrifices in Babylonia. There was 30 different types of priests in Babylonia, and being a musician or a storyteller was some of them. Being a sorceress was another. Yeah, so this book I was reading earlier. I'm going to be getting a copy of the Law of Harambe. I can't pronounce it right. Hammurabi. Some of these words, you know, I have trouble pronouncing. Partly because of, you know, what's going on up here. But a lot of the stuff that's in there, a lot of it was then later made into things that ended up in the Talmud or in the Torah. So I'm going to be getting a copy of that. And that book tells you that it's okay to have a slave as long as you promise to let them free six years later. I know. I was like, what? Let's read this. Let's read this together. Thus, in the oldest code of the Hebrews, the so-called Book of the Covenant, slavery, while formally recognized, is changed practically into an indentured by the stipulation. So this is talking about how in the Law of Harambe, they talked about how you could have a slave as long as you got rid of them after like 6 years or something like that, right? And offered to let them go, like a quid pro quo or some shit like that, right? Not okay. Not okay. I'm sorry, but all this mental gymnastics is not okay. So what happened was when the Hebrews then had their Torah, which they adapted when they adapted. So they would change words around. So instead of using slave, they used indentured, like a servant. So like a servant was basically a slave. So let's start from the beginning of this. We're going to start at the top of this. Okay. The reason for the retention of old laws by the side of later ones lies in the view common to antiquity of the law as a divine decree, an oracular decision of a deity. So the Hebrew word for the law, Torah, has its equivalent in the Babylonian tetratu, T-E-R-T-U. I'll put it on the screen if I remember. Remember, I can't say these words. I'm trying. I need to get ChatGPT to help me out. But even then, they don't pronounce everything right either. So which means oracle. Okay? The decision in a dispute between parties was rendered by the deity and originally, no doubt, before the image of the god. So it's like they took all of this, like these laws, as like whoever their god, their divine, the deity or whatever they, you know, were under, or deities. This is their law. This is their decree. So that's why they took their laws like this very seriously. You could also say that saying that this is God's decree is also a way of scaring people into going along to get along. Well, God told us this. You better listen. See, it's okay for us to have a slave for 6 years. God said so. You see how that works? It's kind of, I think nowadays most of us understand that. Okay. So therefore, the law was binding at all times because of this. But while it could not be aggregated, modifications were introduced which practically changed its tenor, and since these modifications take on the form of regulations superimposed on the law, the old formally retained by the side of the new. Thus, in the oldest code of the Hebrews, the so-called Book of the Covenant, slavery, while formally recognized, is changed practically into an indentured by the stipulation that when one buys a slave, he must set free at the end of 6 years. So in the code of Hammurabi, the lexicalians, I can't even say some of these words, is not frequently modified into a fine regard as a quid pro quo, in the place of the original literal interpretation. We are not in a position to indicate the age of the oldest position in the law of the Hammurabi, but from an important document of the reign of a far earlier ruler, and then they give his name, Eureka Genia. I don't know. Like I said, I have trouble. Like, I need to sit down. It's up here. It's you. It is Urukagina. And I'm sure somebody's screaming at it. It's this, Keisha. It's this. I know my mentor's probably definitely. I'm going to write these down and ask him, actually. Maybe he knows. Chi-Chi would definitely know. He'll probably just ask me why I didn't ask Google to do it for me. Sometimes I ask certain questions and he's like, you could have figured that out if you sat and thought about it for a minute. And I was like, yeah, but why do that when it's faster to ask you? Computers are like a brain, like Patrick's. Sometimes it's faster to have him do a math problem than for me to pull out a calculator and do it or write it down, because he just like that. So basically, what it's saying is that, yeah, like the Jews or the Hebrews at the time, they took stuff from the Babylonian laws and kind of just changed things around or massaged it to make it a little bit better. To say, like, well, see, we're better than them. Something like that, right? And then it goes into stuff about property. And you've probably heard a lot of weird shit about, like, from the Talmud. Well, this is where the Talmud gets it from. Except the Talmud is actually supposedly a little bit better than this. Yeah, and then, I mean, they elaborated, and it's a lot bigger, but, you know, a lot of these laws and stuff, so, yeah. And it's just a little bit of everything. Our word of the day should be something that I can't pronounce. Yeah, they got pictures in here of some of the laws. You can't see it. So, also, too, the Thought Forms book I was telling you guys about, I got a copy of it. I got a used copy of it online. It was not it wasn't Blavatsky. It was actually a woman who was a Freemason. Let me find this book. Where is the cover? Do you just love how I'm just like always just stumbling through here? My entire life. My brain's just every fucking where. Thought Forms. Annie Besset, and then she wrote it with S.W. Ledbetter. So she was a Freemason. And the Thought Forms book, I have it coming, but it talks about creating thought forms and how they have colors. Look, this one looks like an eye. And how different thought forms and things produce certain shapes and colors. They do go into a little bit in vibrations and how sounds will cause those. You've seen those plates of where they put sand and then they'll put certain sounds and it creates a shape. Trying to indicate how, like, you know how language, we can translate languages from, like, we can translate English to Spanish, and we can translate Spanish to, say, Chinese, and Chinese to Japanese, and, you know, just go on and on, right? Well, we can translate colors into a sound because they have a frequency, so we can translate the color or the frequency of a color into a sound. A sound can be translated into a color. A color can be translated into a sound that becomes a vibration, which is a feeling. Do you see what I'm saying? Colors also invoke thoughts and emotions and feelings. So you can translate a color that's also a sound into feelings. And you can actually make people feel things with your art based off of the frequencies or sounds that you curated, or your art. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's almost like it's something that you can translate. And that's a little bit what I'm learning about with like doing art and the oil painting, is how I can take my dreams and translate it into a picture that you can then translate a picture. You can get inspiration from a picture and turn it into a movie or a song. That too, stories. We can get stories from that. And so I'm learning how to take what's in here from a dream, and dreams, they're a little bit mysterious. Like, we can see about like where we're getting our dream information from throughout the day. If you look back, you can be like, oh, I dreamed about going to Target because I actually went to Target today. Do you see what I'm saying? But then there's some things in our dreams that are just totally random, like, why did I dream about elephants that flew? Right? There might be some other reason to that, or fun symbolism that we can look at. We can make that into a picture that might inspire a song, that then might inspire a movie. And you see how that translates, the creativity translates over. It's a vibration. Creativity, is like love. It does not cease. It just keeps flowing. Love is also too. Love is such a powerful thing because it translates time, space. It can go anywhere, like it can time travel. Like, you can love someone who's dead. You can send them love and they're not here anymore. They're wherever you believe. Do you see what I'm saying? You can send love to someone that's on the other side of the world. That's transcending time and space. So, love is a very powerful tool to use in magic, if that's something you believe in, for good things. You see what I'm saying? So if you do things like in a spell out of love, this is what Chi said, they're way more potent when you do things because of love. But not like selfish love where you really got to think about, like, is this for selfish reasons or do I really want the best for this person? Do you see what I'm saying? And it's more potent. It's like when a mother loves their kid and, they're able to do superhuman things because of the love they have for their child. They were able to transcend, this huge ass fucking car that rolled over their kid. They were able to push that up and roll their kid out. And it was something that they never would have been able to do for anybody else but their child because of the love they had. And it transcended the physical. So that was another thing we talked about. So we're talking about manipulative laws and people who change them. Remember, this is not me being this group of people's this way. No, it's always a few people within the group who use it for bad things. And usually most majority of the people that are a part of a group, like the Freemasons, they're all put there as like a defense wall. So you have to get through them and them going, the Freemasons are fine. It's just a bunch of hanging out guys' rituals. It's just a pancake breakfast. They just want money. You have to go through all that to get to the king or the secret sorcerer in the middle of the castle. You have to go through all of these people who don't have the same means as the king or the sorcerer or whoever in the middle, the black prince, the black king, or I shouldn't be using that. That doesn't sound right. The monster, the hidden monster, the dragon in the dungeon, whatever. I don't know. The hidden person is always going to surround themselves. Do you see what I'm saying? And so it's like Nexium. Nexium's the perfect example of these little secret societies that make up this magic circle. And then you got all of these secret societies that are built up too. So you're going through normal people who have joined these secret societies who are just saying, no, this is fine. And you're getting through them. Like, let's use Universal Studios. So you're just a normal pop star over at Universal Studios, right? And you're being inducted into some of these symbolisms and doing these things, and you're feeling good. And no, manifesting's fine. This is all great or whatever, you know? But they don't realize, like, that, you know, some of these symbolisms and things they're being told to put into their music is actually fueling somebody else's belief agenda, and they're being used. Because they don't realize that the family that's invested in the company that runs the shots at Universal has a belief system that's very old. And they believe that you are really their priest, and you're here to enact things for them because you're a priest for them. You see what I'm saying? It gets a lot scarier too when people have large fan bases of children. And then they can use them to lure in said children for things. They can use their fan bases for things. They can throw them out and throw them under the bus. It's sad. And like, it's like even some of these executives, like, they get in the position and it's, oh, I need to keep my job. I got a family to support. Side note, look into Lucian Grange. His backstory is very interesting. Either he's a very, very, very great person, or what the hell's going on there? I'd like to think you know better of people, but Lucian Grange's first wife had complications during childbirth and ended up in a coma for like a decade in a home. Now remember, Lucian Grange said marry well. Now I don't know if that meant like, okay, well his second wife is adult. I gotta do the Peter Mom thing. In the beginning of this, Agamemnon does that. But the slave he takes is the daughter of a priest of Apollo, okay? And Apollo, some people believe, was actually like an elf god, and that there are some Celtic gods and things that might actually be him, or translate to be him. That's what some people believe, okay? They believe that he was like some kind of elf god or some crap like that. He has the arrows. That's traditionally, you see that like in elf culture, like the arrow thing. You've ever heard of elf shocks or whatever? It was an old thing about like you could get shot by an elf arrow and you might go numb. They used to think that strokes, that used to be that. It's really back from when like people that other people believed were elves, they usually lived and hid in the woods, and they would make these little arrows and put like paralytics on them, and they would dart them at people. Skinwalkers do this too. I know too much. That's why we're vlogging this. So in the Iliad, so he takes the daughter of the priest of Apollo. So the priest, he prays to Apollo, and since Apollo is also the god of plagues, he sends a plague on the whole fucking land, right? And cattle dies. Some of the men start dying. The warriors start dying. And it becomes a whole mess for Agamemnon. And he has to end up giving her back. And then it becomes a thing because then he takes Achilles' slave girl, and he acts like a little fucking baby and whines to his mom because he had a slave girl taken by Agamemnon. It's a whole thing, and it just shows you how back then and in the cultures, the families that follow this, how they look at women as property, right? Think of all the trad wife shit we hear about now, okay? So Scooter Braun had a holding company called Ithaca, which was the city that Odysseus was king of. was Ithaca. Odysseus is a man. He was a man. He was a human. He was not part God, part any of that. He was a man, okay? This is something Chi told me, but in these cultures, it's very inappropriate for a human to own a hybrid person. Because in the past of slavery and things, it's just highly inappropriate for anybody, right? But they believe that when it's done, that bad things happen, like plagues. So Taylor Swift had her master's taken before, like, was it 2019 that happened? When was that? In 2019, Scooter Braun's company purchased Big Machine Records and gave him ownership rights to the masters. Following a public dispute, Braun sold the catalog to Shamrock Capital in 2020. So, in 2019, Scooter purchased her masters, and then in 2020 we had the pandemic, and Scooter and his clients had to cancel tours, and he lost a lot of money, and then he ended up getting a divorce and having to get rid of everything, and his career kind of took a shit. Do you see that? Do you see why some of these bloodline families and Chi and them, like, they point this out and they go, we're not saying that Taylor Swift's special. We're just saying that when you're a part of certain family lines, that, like, your guardian angels will make sure you're protected. It's like that. It's like having a guardian angel. I'm sure you guys have had this, actually, that a lot of us have situations, especially if you found yourself on my channel. You know, you're probably much like me and attuned, and you probably have had situations where you felt like, you know, like you got lucky, you know, like you're like, if I had made this decision, and if I didn't hear this little voice in the back of my head, or I didn't, like, was a little late for work or something, I would have been in an accident. I would have gotten screwed over. If I had taken this deal, I would have lost a bunch of money, kind of stuff, right? Well, some people think that's divine favor from, like, they believe, like, it's like an interdimensional. It's like in here. It's like in these books. Like how Achilles in this book, he was, his father was Zeus, and his mother was a sea, like, goddess or something, you know? So he wasn't exactly fully human. So he got divine favor from the gods. Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, some people who were, like, a demigod in this book were a hybrid, were related to an interdimensional. For me, that's easier than thinking of, like, a god. An interdimensional being. So, like, a being that's, like, invisible, that we can't see. You could think plasma being, too. A being that exists on a light frequency we can't see. Because, you know, there's, like, frequencies you can't hear, and there's light sources, like ultraviolet light, you can't see. So sometimes they believe that they can manifest themselves, and they can do it with human women, and boom, demigods, people with divine. So it's just like having a relative who's watching out for you on the other side. That's it. And I'm sure a lot of people have felt that in their life. You know, you probably have a story. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your story about how you felt like, wait a minute, that was someone else helping me out. But you see that? Apollo, or Apollon is the Greek version of his name, came and helped out when that priest's daughter was taken as a slave. He put a plague on the entire freaking land. Just like when Taylor had her masters taken by Scooter Braun, who sold fake IDs before 9/11. Facts. it's inappropriate for somebody to own somebody's masters because of the wording and stuff. You own someone's masters, you become their master. The wording just implies it. It's gross. It's just gross wording to have someone have ownership of someone's masters and be like their master. It's also like two words that they use in Freemasonry and stuff, which if Brother Taylor probably didn't like that either. Right. So, yeah, that's your little lesson. That's all their stuff. Let's do some dot cakes in a little bit. Yeah. You can learn a lot from Homer, right? Homer. I hate how people want to be like, you can do the Odyssey movie however you want. No. Homer, this is how Homer wrote it. Quit trying to erase this man, this person. They always want to erase him and be like, well, we don't know. That could have been a group of people. We don't really know. We don't really know who he is. But we have his books. It's disrespectful. Stop disrespecting the dead that gave you beautiful fucking literature. Beautiful.
I wouldn't beat up on yourself too much about it for now.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Actually means a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
When you were in the industry, I would say in the rise of your career and even just as you're going across your career in the industry, did you ever just feel like the industry wasn't what you thought it was?
Yes.
Was it like right away that you realized that, or did it take a little while to realize?
Yeah, when was that,
I
Nikki?
think it took a little while because in the beginning and
Republic Records made you feel so welcome, right?
Honestly, it was.
Universal made you feel so welcome, right? It was like
rooting for
you
each
felt
other.
cool, right?
I thought that's how it would always be. I thought everyone just roots for each other and really wants each other to win. And
no,
I just thought the camaraderie was how it was supposed to be.
No camaraderie.
So it was a beautiful experience in the beginning. I started realizing people are really vindictive in this industry.
Yep.
That if you don't, in other words, like I started realizing that if you don't get money with one person or specific people, they don't want you to get money at all.
Whoa.
And that's when I started realizing, like, oh my gosh, what did I sign up for? Because I didn't know that these people would be so territorial over people, that they don't even know, that they don't have any claims to. But that's what it started feeling like. It started feeling like everyone wanted to, like, stake their claim into human beings, like they were property.
Yeah.
And if you didn't abide by their rules or put money in their pocket, they would actively try to stop you from making money to feed your family, from prospering in the industry that you love.
Whoa.
So that's when a different light bulb went off in my head. Like, what the heck did I get into?
Whoa. Okay, I got a lot of questions because when you say they would stop you from flourishing in general, are you saying outside of just the music industry, like they would try to stop from flourishing?
How did they make you feel, Nikki?
If you're in the music industry, that's the way you make money. So everything is kind of the music industry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be like if you had a disagreement with one person, instead of that person just moving on with their lives, with their life, and you moving on with your life, it would be like this person would call someone else so that you won't get an opportunity over there.
Yep.
And then that would continue happening. Yes. But not just with me. I saw it with a lot of very talented people. Yeah. That they were talented and maybe one particular person or one particular group of people didn't like them. And because of that, they kind of just got, made to be like almost invisible.
Whoa.
I started seeing that a lot. Like, what is
Whoa. Oh, whoa. Welcome to today. I'm editing this vlog and trying to finish this vlog. Let me show you the dot cakes. Yes. Made the dot cakes last night. As you can see. Pretty good. Let me show you this. So you don't have to spend $90 on dot cakes. You can make this shit at home. a spoon from the dishwasher. Alright. Yeah, so that's interesting. Nikki was talking. I'll link that. That's in a playlist full of all kinds of other shit. I'll link. Okay, there's some extra sprinkles, but listen. So here. They're falling off. You hear it? I know, the sprinkles are falling off all over the floor. I'm going to have to pull the vacuum out, but let me show you now. Look, perfect for Pride, right? Pride colors, love it. Not 90 bucks. What's good is it forms kind of like a candy crust on the top with the dots, and I think that's what it's so good about the texture. This is my second batch I've made. Pretty good, so let me show you. So it's really good. So I'm gonna end the vlog here since it's so long. We talked about a lot. I'm gonna link that playlist. As always, all these stars are yours, guys. I gave them to you. They're all yours. The more we know, the more we don't know. But we're on our way to finding out more. And yeah, I'm gonna start vlogging later. So I'm gonna finish my dot cake while editing, and I'm gonna see you in the next one, so we can talk more, because I'm back to vlogging because we have a lot to talk about. Which I talked to my mentor this morning. Because I read I'm on book 12 in the Iliad. And he's like, what did you learn? That's just what he'll go, what did you learn from book 12? And there's one part where there's a bird sign. We'll talk about bird signs more, but there's a bird sign. And the guys are like, maybe we shouldn't go to battle because Zeus sent us this bird sign. And it says that we'll lose. And one of the guys goes, the only bird sign I need is go to battle. And I'm like, oh shit. When I read it, I'm like, oh shit. So I told my mentor, I'm like, I learned not to say fuck it to gods like Zeus. I said not to fuck it to authority. Say fuck it to someone who probably knows more than me, who's wiser, who's like, hey, you shouldn't go to battle today. It's not going to work out. Instead of just saying, fuck it, I'm going to battle, that's my omen. And how they lost. Because they had the hubris to be like, fuck that to Zeus, or whoever's telling me not to do this, I'm going to do it anyways. And you lost. You lost because somebody wiser told you not to do this, and you still did it. You're not getting back at the wiser person because they told me something told me not to do something I want to do. No, you did it to yourself. Like Achilles being a baby. Because Agamemnon took his slave girl that he shouldn't have had as a slave in the fucking first place. Anyways, I'm going to be ordering that Code of Harambe. I keep wanting to call it the Code of Harambe, but it's Code of Harambe. And then I'm going to be getting... My mentor loves The Handmaid's Tale. He loves the Testaments. He says it's Freemason coded. It's because, you know, the main group is the sons of Jacob. He feels like it's very, like... I say coded. He didn't say coded, but I'm like... He's like, there's elements of the Freemason and secret society symbolism in these books that we can learn a lot from by going through and decoding symbolism and stuff. Margaret knew a lot, and then he really likes that Margaret Atwood was writing from a perspective of the Nazi and World War II. Because, like I said, World War II didn't end for some people, so I'm starting to ramble again, and I'm supposed to be ending, but... I love you guys. I got books that we're going to be reading and talking about. And not in ways that you probably think we'd be talking about. We're not going to be talking them from like a feminist point of view. We're going to be talking to them from like a conspiracy point of view, because a lot of those types of things, it'll affect more marginalized groups and then seep up into the rest of the population. So other people's problems are our problems, because eventually they will seep up into everybody except a small fraction of people who have most of the wealth. And that is not us, and that'll never be us. So cheers to that. I love you. I'm done talking. Next vlog. See you in the next one. We'll all talk some more.
Problem solving is something that schools generally don't teach you. You know, a lot of people don't have a good generalized approach to problem solving. They're not thorough, don't consider all the possibilities, prepare themselves with the right information. If you can develop a kind of generalized approach to problem solving, it's surprising how it helps you in anything.
I don't think. I know.
Every 4 computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.